Well, good afternoon. This is a topic on shared identity. Actually, the material is more than the one in the morning, but I try to make it short. I hope I can give you some pictures about the prehistorical period and then the historical period of Southeast Asia, and from which then we can understand what kind of shared identity we have, and it can be interpreted as layers on which Southeast Asian now found themselves. First, about identity, which I would say or define in simple way, is a distinctive characteristics of a phenomenon. And as we know that Southeast Asia is a region, and Dr. Asmi just told us that Southeast Asia can be seen as institution, ASEAN is institution, or as a region. And in this region, there are various societies with similarities and differences live, and the similarities are the common characteristics. And I think this is what we will talk about this afternoon. The common characteristic can be said as the distinctive characteristics of the people there. So it's called also the identity. There are, of course, assumptions here that the similarities are products of past processes or historical processes in the past, and those similarities produce a kind of awareness that they are similar to one another, from which then spring the solidarity, and the solidarity leads to cooperation and union. This, I think, our assumptions behind what I was going to talk today as shared identity, which will be relevant to ASEAN. Understanding ASEAN means understanding Southeast Asia, and it means that we understand histories and the common characteristics in the region. What we have just heard from Dr. Asmi, from Professor Alin, I think some hints to the shared identity. And the common characteristic or shared identity can be social, cultural, economy, or politics. The questions are, what are the common characteristics of the peoples in Southeast Asia? And then what processes has produced those common characteristics? These are the questions that we may raise, and we try to answer this afternoon. Of course, there is also assumption that there are some common characteristics among cultures of the peoples in Southeast Asia, and of course, because they live in certain region, uniformity in climate, and here and there some variations, and also the geography, history, which are common in this region. The ecology has played important role in the area's history, influencing relationship between peoples living in densely populated fertile areas, usually along the rivers, and those who dwell on the much less fertile periphery. It's interesting that the symbol of ASEAN is rice, and this is quite, I think, appropriate symbol, because wet rice agriculture is one of the general characteristics of the region, and rice is the staple food of most Southeast Asian people. The floodplains are ideal for wet rice, and the hinterland for slash and burn cultivation, but also for dry rice. So rice is important for Southeast Asian. And we have prehistory, Paleolithic prehistory. We have some information about the culture at the time, with hunting and gathering economy, and chopping tools, large pebbles, and then we have some special characteristics of prehistoric Southeast Asia. They have developed pottery making, plant domestication, which is not found in other region. Yeah. Prehistoric culture, prehistoric pottery making culture is also known as Hoabinhian culture, which is characterized by ground stone tools, pottery, and domesticated plants and animals. Yeah. It's interesting to know that prehistoric peoples in Southeast Asia had become food producers several thousand years before peoples of other region. And then from these characteristics, emerged the Neolithic horticulture, which will spread to Pacific. Now we see here the characteristic of horticultural Neolithic. After Paleolithic, we have Neolithic, and we have the presence of garden crops, fruit trees cultivated by hand labor, which is different from agricultural Neolithic, with cereal grain crops and the use of draft animals. And in Pacific region, the horticulture became the basis of the Papuans, Micronesians, and so forth. And at the time, in Southeast Asia, people has developed arts of basketry and matting, and then also they made chisels, which indicate their importance in woodworking technology of the people. This is the prehistoric Neolithic in Southeast Asia. So the general characteristic of Neolithic in Southeast Asia is horticulture, garden crops and fruit trees, arts of basketry and matting, and finely made edges and chisels. And then we have prehistoric bronze iron. This is again interesting because 4,000 years ago or more, the people here had learned how to make bronze for weapons and tools. And the bronze culture is known as Dongson culture because it's found in there, which might have come from China, but might have also been developed by South Asian themselves. The characteristic of this culture is that they have drums, large bronze drums decorated with figures of people, animals, and this drum had been found throughout Southeast Asia. So we have here centuries before the beginning of historical periods, tools of iron, which is an essential part of Southeast Asian technology. Then at the time, stratification developed, and also the development of wet rice cultivation population, which spread from forested hills into alluvial lowlands. General characteristic of Southeast Asia bronze iron culture is Dongson culture, large bronze drum with figures of peoples, animals, geometric designs, and then we have also social stratification and wet rice cultivation. Now we have here the characteristic of prehistoric culture of Southeast Asia, and we see here the map of folk migrations, which will also show us the languages of the people in this area. We have Vietnamese, Tibeto-Burman, Thai, and then people who speak Malayo-Polynesians. The arrows show the spread of the people, but the origin sometimes is not quite clear. But somewhere in Southeast Asia, they have found some fossils of these peoples, like in China, and then spreading to mainland Southeast Asia. We have languages, Malayo-Polynesian languages, which is divided into two subgroups, Western branch and Eastern branch. We have here Malayo-Polynesian, Eastern branch and Western branch. And I think in this case we'll see then the similarities between the people, common characteristics in their languages. Western Malayo-Polynesians spread in Indonesia, and then Eastern ones spread to Melanesia, Polynesia, and so forth. And then we have Cham and Malay, principal Malayo-Polynesian languages of mainland Southeast Asia. I think some of you maybe speaks Cham, and then it's related to the dialects in South Vietnam. And it's interesting that languages Kamboja are closely linked to Chinese, which is in northern Sumatra. Still, we have other language family in Southeast Asia like Javanese, Bajo, Iban, Kayan, and many things. Yeah. They are part of the Malayo-Polynesian languages. We have then the second family, Mon Khmer languages. Khmer is the national language of Cambodia and important language in the lower delta of Mekong River. And then we have Thai languages spoken in Thailand, and then others include Shan of Burma, Thai language of southern China, Haina, and then Tibeto-Burmese languages. Burmese is the most familiar of the Tibeto-Burmese languages. Dominant central in the zone of Burma, Lower Burma, and other areas. And then we have Vietnamese Hmong languages. Vietnamese and the coastal areas of North and South Vietnam, they speak these languages. And then we have Mia Yao languages in the northern Thailand, North Vietnam. Yeah. So we have some Southeast Asian family of languages. We have 6, and then we have European languages, French, English, which came to this area brought by the Europeans at that time. So these languages have also become the mark of boundaries between different life ways and worldviews. These are the principal languages, more or less, in Southeast Asia. We have many. So in this case, we see that in terms of languages, you have differences, but also relationships one with another, because they are still in family of languages. Although they are different, but they are still related to one another. And in that case, I think you have then similarities and differences. Now, these linguistic families in Southeast Asia much more detail, but we don't go there. And the language families relate various people of different Southeast Asian nations, create what we can call familiar relationships among the peoples of different nations. And in this sense, I think, have become one of the pillars on which ASEAN was later established. The history, I think I have told you before. Now, let's go to the historical period. We started with Indianized state period, in which the Indian influence, and this is the information which I would like to give to our friend from Vietnam. It's about the influence from South Asia. Actually, it's the elements of culture carried by commercial travelers, seamen, and they brought them to mainland Southeast Asia and to the archipelago. And one of the interesting thing is the idea of semi-divine king of the mountain called Dewa Raja. It's found also in Cambodia, and this elements of culture, especially in the political system, has spread in many parts of Southeast Asia. Dewa Raja is a very important conception of kingship in Southeast Asia. And then European trade period, we have European sailors at the time, which then entered Southeast Asia seas, and they have rivalry with Arabs, Indian, and Javanese. Now we have here before or the period in Indianized state period, influence from India. Sriwijaya is a Buddhist kingdom. We heard that in Sriwijaya we have a very good school of Buddhism at that time. And then we have in mainland Chenla, Piao, Champa. And then in 12th century, the picture is more complicated. It means that a lot of more local kingdoms arose in that area. And then here, 14th century, still more complicated, and we have then Majapahit in Indonesia, and in mainland we have like Khmer, Sukhothai, Ao in Vietnam, and so forth. Now, let's go to belief system and religions. Although they have a lot of influences from Hinduism, Buddhism, but animism was actually the original belief system in Southeast Asia, the oldest one. Before the coming of the great religions, we have animism, in which people believe about the spirits, which were believed to be everywhere present and everywhere in need of propitiation. Throughout Southeast Asia, animism still supported peasants in their daily lives, even up to now in some places. From an animistic perspective, the person knows that beyond his own moral resources, he can depend on and seek the protection of Saksit power, which can help him to achieve his aims and enjoy a safe existence. This is animism in Southeast Asia. And then we have, this is important, ancestor worship. I think this is one of these layers of belief system still with us in many parts of the region. Animism still there, ancestor worship still there. Although it's been covered by layers from the new religions, great religions, like the one in Vietnam, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Philippines. We still have ancestor worship. And then we have the principal religions like Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism. Now, Hinduism, Buddhism first. This come from India. In the first 4 centuries, we have found images of Buddha from 2nd and 3rd centuries, and we found it in various places in Southeast Asia. And then this religion were brought by Brahman and Buddhist priests and teachers, and we found some record of Indian settlement and rule in Southeast Asia. Buddhism consists of 2 schools, Mahayana Buddhism and Theravada Buddhism. Mahayana is the northern school of Buddhism, and then Theravada, sometimes called Hinayana, is the southern school, which spread from India to Ceylon, Burma, Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos. Then we have Islam, which is spread first in Malay Peninsula, in Terengganu, and then we found that Islam had a powerful patronage in Malacca and become a great religion in this area. Although Islam was not organized in church, but it possessed institution, structures, and patterns of communication which related its peoples together and joined them to Central Islam in the Middle East. In this case, the important factor was the movement of people. The Arabs, mainly traders, including preachers, had been dominant in the port societies of archipelago for centuries. And then one important thing also is that the pilgrimage to Mecca. Pilgrimage is very important for the Muslims because it related them to the center of the religion, that is in Mecca. So we have here a sense of commonality through Islam, in addition to sense of commonality through Hinduism and Buddhism. As we go back to the principal religions here, we see that in the northern part, Mahayana, Theravada, and then Islam, And then we have Christianity, of course. And how actually the Christianity brought here. Before that, we see that Christianity was introduced by the Europeans. And we know that in this area, different processes of Christianization took place. First is Christianization was done by the Spanish, and then later by the Portuguese, Dutch missionaries, and then German missionaries. And Indonesia especially, the Portuguese in eastern area, and then Dutch missionaries mostly in the western area. They brought to Protestantism, and Dutch missionaries brought Catholicism and Protestantism. So we have Catholics and Protestant in this area. And we go back here, we see now the big religion, great religion, in parts of Southeast Asia. See that Islam in Java, you have Hinduism in Bali, and then you have Christianity in Papua, and also animism there, Christianity in Philippines. These are related to the history of the spread of this religion. Then another important thing is village life. Village life in Southeast Asia can be seen as similar, from one place to another. You see that if you go around in Southeast Asia visiting rural areas, you'll see a lot of similarities between rural areas in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Thailand, in Myanmar. They are very similar to one another. And in these areas, in the past, the kings had the soil. The communities joined property rights, and the villagers had the right of actually using land. Well, there were also legal codes. Some were the product of secular and ecclesiastical bureaucracies, but some are from the district chiefs. And then we have family and kinship system. This is, I think, important, which was related to Asian values. And in Southeast Asia, family is quite important, especially the nuclear family, because the kinship system is the bilateral system, which in this case people trace the relationships to their kin through maternal and paternal line. Although in this case sometimes there were biases on paternal lines, but still bilaterality is very important, still strong. And also high position of women. So actually there are not many problem of gender in Southeast Asia. It's rather different from other parts of the world. And then the nuclear family is self-containing moral world. Everyone is centered there, and in this, people are thought to avoid confrontation and to compromise with each other while subordinating their ego drives to solidarity. I think this is the Asian values that Dr. Azmi has just taught us in ASEAN. Avoiding confrontation, I think, was one of the very interesting characteristic. Compromising. So many Southeast Asian people actually were socialized or grew up in this kind of situation in their family. And family is the firm moral basis in life, and it's very important, so they should guard its reputation. So in the absence of structural principles like unilineal kinship system, or clans, lineages, the characteristics of bilateral is strong, and nuclear family is important. So the family is the basic social institution. It is the foundation of the nation. I think we can understand from this, yeah, the importance of Asian values, yeah, and then ASEAN WIS, which is quite related to this situation. Individual household, part of wide networks of related families, and we usually know up to third degree. So we have cousins, and then second cousin, third cousins, yeah. And we are related to one another on dyadic basis, face-to-face relationships. Yeah. This I think is quite important for us. Face-to-face relationships. People in Southeast Asia can understand, from my experience, I know that people want to have face-to-face relationships. Yeah, it's more warmer. So it's really informal. You really engage with people. Yeah. So not based on strict rules. Yeah. That kind of things. Yeah. And then so you have emotional, in this case, a relationship. And then people support the children of needy or isolated relatives for the sake of their education. So we help people. Yeah, we help our relatives. Yeah. Whatever their obligations, families, and even close relatives. Yeah, usually not subject to any corporate organizations. Yeah. Inheritance is divided, and usually, in most cases, equally shared. This again shows that equality, yeah, among the family members are important. Values. Yeah. Values or moral education is a very important subject in Southeast Asia. The teaching emphasizes respect for and submission to morally superior people. Parents, teachers, yeah, should be respected. I think this is also part of your experiences in your life. And then also those superior in age and rank. Yeah. We have then king as servants, and then presidents and his officials. Usually the relationship is like that. Yeah. And in this case, hierarchy is the backbone. And the support of the moral order. The core characteristic is the relative super and subordination, yeah, or the basic inequality of individual people. That's why we have in Southeast Asia, one of the characteristics is that we have leaders and followers, you know, patrons and clients, yeah, and usually the superiors lead, teach, yeah, and protect, yeah, and responsible for the inferiors, while the inferiors follow, accept, and grateful and extend honor. Awareness of relative position is important and should be expressed in manners and choice of words. That's why language is important in Southeast Asia. In speaking, people try to use, yeah, the right words. Yeah. Otherwise, yeah, if they do not observe that code, yeah, it will be considered as rough, disrespectful, yeah, a demonstration of not knowing one's place, of not knowing manners. This is actually the life of and the values of the Southeast Asian people. Yeah. We have arts then. Indian influences can be seen, yeah, here. Yeah. In arts, we heard about Ramayana, and we know that in some places, yeah, we have these similarities. We have also the wayang, and this is part of Indianized influence. Yeah. And related to this is the political system of the kingdom, in which the kingdom was conceived as the model of the universe. The capital city was designed as a microcosmic representation of the kingdom. This can be seen like in Java, yeah, where we see that the kingdom, yeah, is considered as the model of the universe. And then we have also some other influences from India, especially in philosophical teachings, also in the story and style of language. Ramayana Mahabharata, I think you know all these stories, although maybe you have different versions, but still when we heard about that, we know that, oh, we related to one another. In Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Ramayana has become very popular stories, and they also become wayang kulit and wayang Melayu. Now, of course, the people in this area develop their own identities and interpretations in using this epic or then their dance dramas and shadow theaters. These are the shared experiences and influences which we can find in Southeast Asia, so that we have shared identity in prehistorical cultures, historical context and experiences, and then we have also languages, belief systems, village life, family and kinship system, values, and arts. With this kind of relationships one to another, we feel that in Southeast Asia there is a kind of shared identity on which then we see that ASEAN can be built, although it's not quite in a direct way, but at least we understand that there are some cultural layers, similarities, common characteristics in cultures and experiences that lead to the formation of ASEAN. Of course, in this case, you have differences in historical experiences, but still, we can relate to one another, so that we can have what we call ASEAN today. That's what I can present to you today. Thank you very much for all your attention.
Okay, thank you. And so one more time, we'll break into groups for about 20 minutes.